Let's go ahead and start. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Hope Nduta, and I usually host this session. So, welcome to another Cyber Shuja mentorship session. And today we'll be talking about cybersecurity incident management, which I hope is something we've heard of. And if we've not, we are here to learn about it. And with us is Lawrence, who will take us through this topic, help us understand what incident management, cybersecurity incident management is, how they do it at first, and what generally the industry is looking for when it comes to the skills we need to equip ourselves with in order to be relevant in whatever job roles we go into. So Lawrence is Africa Regional Liaison at first. He's also a board member at the Open University of Kenya and chair at the Research and Innovation he's also chair Research and Innovation Working Group at the Kenya Cybersecurity and Forensics Association. So he, without doubt, has diverse experience with everything cybersecurity, IT operations, policy and strategy, and stakeholder management. And he's quite equipped to take us through this session. So karibu sana Lawrence, and welcome to the Cyber Shuja mentorship session.
Thank you so much, Hope, for that amazing introduction. It's always still new when you hear someone else introducing the things that you have done and haven't done. Very happy to be here. Looking forward to a very insightful discussion. Hopefully, I won't kill anyone with my slides. So, what will we be discussing today? Cybersecurity incident management. So I'm hopefully, by the end of this, some of us, if not all of us, will have an idea of what do we mean when we talk about cybersecurity incident management. Before we do that, a brief introduction of who we are or who FAST is. So FAST is an acronym which stands for Forum of Incident Response and Security Team. It's essentially an association of a cybersecurity incident response and security team. We were founded in 1990. So FAST is a non-profit that was founded in 1990. One, if not the leading body globally when it comes to matters of cybersecurity incident response. Our main mandate or the things we love to do is one, we are trying and continue building an ecosystem where incident responders can engage with their peers. So think of it as a safe, open, free space where incident response team are from different levels. So from a technical, from a leadership management point of view, can just engage with each other and try figure out what's happening, learn from each other, and just make the whole ecosystem more holistic. We also try and work to ensure that incident responders have a shared understanding of security problems. We develop technology standards, and also we foster an environment that is conducive for incident responders. So hopefully, as we go through the slides, some of these will clearly come out. And as you guys hopefully start going and trying to learn more regarding what FAST does, you will be able to see the value, the critical value FAST plays in. So I'm FAST Africa Regional Liaison. What does the liaison title mean? So essentially, my main role is actually talking to incident response team in Africa. So the liaison role is staffed by two of us. So myself based here in Kenya, then I have another colleague based in Accra, and our main responsibility is just to talk to incident response teams. In these teams, we talk them one at a national level. So for example, almost more than 50% of, I think it should be more than 50, let me say more than 30% of countries in Africa have a national SAT, a national incident response team. So we spend a lot of time talking with them, working with them, trying to figure out what are your pain points, what are your challenges, and how can FAST help you with that. Then secondly, we also spend quite a lot of time talking and training what we call communities of practice. So for example, Cybershuja can actually be considered a community of practice because it's trying to create capacity for the next generation of incident responders. A lot of organization, especially regulatory organization and other forums in Kenya, generally all over the world, we also reach out to them. So for example, again, I'll use Kenya. Kenya has TESPOC, which is essentially a collection of what? ISP and telecom operators. We have the Kenya's Bankers Association. So all of those are communities of practice that have incident responders. So we also work with such communities to ensure that they're also benefiting from all the amazing thing FAST does. Then lastly, we try foster and build formal and informal trust networks and information sharing networks. Essentially, we try and bring people together so that in case of an incident, in case of a crisis, someone knows who to reach out to, and I've already established that trust. So, for example, in the few months when it was alleged that people from Kenya were compromising governmental infrastructure in Tanzania, through the informal networks we have created, it becomes easier for someone from either countries to reach out to their counterpart and just ask, hey, Rada, or for guys who speak, for Kenyans who understand that, or reaching out to the other counterpart and just asking, what's going on? We are seeing A, B, C, and D from your side of the fence. Can we jump on a call and try figure this out? So as a liaison, my main responsibility is just ensuring that everything I've talked about continues and the different communities we serve have someone they can talk to if they need assistance. Already mentioned, I'm also part of ISOC Kenya chapter, which I'll highly recommend a lot of you join, where I lead the membership and outreach activities. As part of Kenya Cybersecurity and Forensics Association, I lead the research and innovation working group. Not interestingly, I'm also a VP of a leading motorcycle club in Kenya. Yes, I do ride motorbikes when I get the time. Then I'm also a co-founder of BSIS Nairobi. I have a background in digital forensics, incident response, cyber threat intelligence, governance risk compliance, policy, SOC, and national CERT. So for the longest time, I used to run and build a security operations center before transitioning to my role here. At first, I built CTF, cyber drill challenges for fun and at times also for profit. So very happy to be here. Looking forward to a very interesting and insightful discussion. What will we try to cover in the next 20 minutes? So one, we'll try and see what do we mean when we talk about incident management. Then how do you build an incident management team? Then how do you prepare for an incident management job? And lastly, we'll try cover any other businesses. At any point you have questions, you need clarity, either raise your hand. Hopefully Hope will help me address that, or put your questions in the chat so that at the end of this, we will be able to handle and address them. Now, this is not meant to be political at all. However, given that a lot of us are cybersecurity people, you might have come across some of what I'm sharing either yesterday or within the last 4 months or 6 months. It's essentially, we have seen, for example, there was a claim yesterday that ICTA, part of their NOC platform, had been compromised by Anonymous Italia. Then sometime last year, we saw actually a few years ago, we saw the country having a DDoS outage that impacted some key governmental services. Sometime last month, again, there was a claim that NSSF had been compromised. Then what else? We also saw, from a law enforcement point of view, entities like the DCI coming out very strongly and effecting or arresting hackers that had been doing ABC and D. Why is this important? So imagine you are the head of cybersecurity of IT or IT at ICTA. Then you are doom scrolling Twitter, and as you are doing that, what you come across is someone actually claiming this, that your organization has been compromised, or you are NSSF, director of ICT or cybersecurity or network operation. Again, someone shares you a link that, hey, has the NSSF been compromised? When this happens, how do you respond to it? How do you validate these? How do you validate that you have actually been compromised? And once you validate that, how do you go ahead reducing impact, reducing reputational damage, and returning business back to normal operation? When you find yourself in that space, essentially what you're thinking about is incident management, because now you have an incident and now you're trying to figure out how do I manage this so that it doesn't become worse than it is already. And with that, we introduce incident management. So what is incident management? So we have incident management, you have incident response, and hopefully you will also you will be able to figure out when to use incident response, incident management, and the difference between all those various terminologies. So incident management is essentially defined steps that organization will take.
Excuse me, Lawrence.
Yes, please.
Sorry. Are you sharing a screen?
Yes, I'm sharing my screen.
No, not on this end.
At all.
At all, at all.
Yeah. Unless
see
someone
anything.
else, maybe it's my side.
Days have suffered.
Also on my side.
No, also
Yeah.
my side.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't see
Okay.
anything as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
Yes, now we can see.
Yes.
And Hope had to be the courageous one to figure out, is it me? Is it my problem? Am I hallucinating? Hope, thank you so much for that. You have given us hope on a lighter
Wow.
note. So I had already explained these. So objectives. This was what I was mentioning. My screen is still visible, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
assume you are a director in any of these governmental entities. Even right now, let me see if I have my pointers. Okay. So I will focus, and this is not really meant to be political. So I'll focus on this first slide. This was a report that was this was a claim that surfaced yesterday that Anonymous Italia had compromised ICTA's Network Operations Center platform, and they had defaced it. Now, you're the ICT director, the cybersecurity director at ICTA. Someone out there brings this to your attention. One, you're a state entity, you're a civil servant, and your website is clearly supporting the current trend where a few guys are saying someone must go. As a government official, that puts you in a very bad place, because it can be misinterpreted as if you are supporting or not, or you are supporting that specific cause. What are you going to do? The second thing, you have been breached. If you go through this breach, maybe there's a PAI data that has been compromised. That platform is no longer available. It can no longer be trusted, which means you are affecting business operation. What are you going to do? How do you, from the moment this is notified, how do you handle this to a point whereby one, your superiors are not seeing you as someone who is antagonizing the government by supporting either political or civil views? Then two, that's purely from an untechnical point of view. You are trying to save your job. You don't want to be seen as someone who is anti-government or anti-current regime. Then second, the organization has been breached, which means services are no longer available. So how do you return services back to your users? So incident response helps you address that, from receiving any of this to the moment where you say that, no, we are managing these services will be restored in the next in the next defined amount of time. So we'll be seeing and essentially breaking that down further. So what's incident management? Define steps taken by organizations to 1, identify; 2, respond; 3, manage. So when we manage an incident, 1, we need to be able to identify that incident. And when we try to identify that incident, maybe let me just pause there. Part of this discussion, it's also meant to help you figure out how do you get jobs into that specific role. So if we get time, we'll share a little bit more on the job career aspect of this. But between now and then, I'll also just try to infuse how this ties down to career prospects. So 1, you need to identify the incident. Identifying incident should be understood in 2 folds. You need to plan and figure out what are the things that I need to be aware of for me to know when I have ransomware. So you have not been affected by ransomware. A ransomware here being an example of an incident. So you have not been affected by ransomware, but you're trying to figure out, what do I need to put in place so that if I'm ever infected by ransomware, I can detect it. That's one aspect of identify. The other aspect of identify is, now I have ransomware. How will I be notified if I have ransomware? And you'll realize that one fold, you need to have log configuration, you need to have a log collection, you need to be doing monitoring, continuous monitoring and analysis. On the other aspect, you might not have all of that, but you might have alternate points. So for example, monitoring social media is a very good way for you to be able to identify instances, especially once that incident has happened. So critical things to be aware of when you talk about incident identification. Then once you've identified your incident, now you need to respond to it. Going back to a slide. So someone on Twitter has told you that NSSF, which you manage their ICT and you have attended all this amazing training, has been compromised. You have identified it. How are you responding to it? Now you have responded to it that, hey, we are compromised. The first response you have done is you have strongly written a public disclosure notifying the public that, hey, we are aware of this claim. We are investigating. Initial analysis or initial investigation have isolated these to a specific data set or specific asset. No user data was compromised. Still part of response. Response here might also be more technical. Your teams gain access to that server. They start doing log analysis. They start doing traffic analysis to identify indicators of compromise, etc. Still under response. Then still part of management, you now need to manage all of that. And when you talk of management, you're managing different aspects of incident response. So for example, remember incident management revolves around identity response and management itself. So you need to manage how do you identify incidences from a technical point of view. So this might mean hiring the right people, having the right tools, having the right processes, still part of management. How do you, from a response point of view, how do you also manage that aspect? Then a still part of management, it might now involve you have been compromised. How are you going now to manage everything post-compromise? Are you going to have one person speak on behalf of the organization? For example, sometime back, Naivas got compromised, and management, not even management, the press release that was issued by Naivas was not even by Naivas. It was done by a third-party entity, I believe Oxygen, that Naivas had contracted to manage that incident. And they were very clear that if you have any issues, talk to that third-party consultancy firm that Naivas was using. So all of that is still part of our incident management. So why do we do identity? Why do we identify? Why do we respond? And why do we manage? To be able to detect attacks, to be able to detect threats, and to be able to detect breaches before they happen, which means you are proactively managing the incident. When they happen, which means you are now reacting to that incident. So we identify, we respond, we manage to attacks, to threats, to breaches. Why are we doing this? One, to minimize business damage and restore normal business operation. So incident management consists of all of those things. You need to identify, you need to respond, you need to manage. From a career point of view, these three steps, identify, respond, and manage, all of them have different career points and career prospects. Under identification, you'll have your SOC analyst, you'll have your security detection engineers, you'll have your threat intelligence analyst, you'll have your system administrators. Under response, you'll still have your SOC analyst, but maybe from tier 2 to tier 3 or level 2, level 3, or all the way from level 1 to level 3. You'll have your malware analyst here who will now do reverse engineering malware analysis once a specific artifact has been collected. Then under management, you'll have your legal team that will tell that, hey, there was a data breach here. Communication authority through KSAT mandates that they need to be notified maybe 72 hours because you're a bank, you're a telco, and you're regulated. Also, someone from legal telling you that, yeah, we also have Data Protection Act that says that this has also to be reported. Then someone, if you're a bank, being told that, yes, again, Central Bank of Kenya has regulations regarding that. Look, once this has been detected, you need to report to them during this specific point of view. Still under management, again, still also under response. And in this case, it's not even the legal team advising you. Sorry, it's not the technical teams advising you. They're the legal teams advising you. Then once the legal teams have advised you, marketing team might tell you, no. You don't use this language. It's going to cause panic. It's going to damage your reputation. Use this specific language and let us stage. I think there's someone whose their mic is on. Thank you. So the marketing team might tell you, use a different language, use a different tone, stage how you release this communication just to ensure that you're not causing a market panic, which might be detrimental to business and even do more harm. Then now you'll have the technical team also coming in and sharing now the technical aspect of our incident response. All of this being done to, one, minimize damage to the organization and restore restore normal business operation. Hope that makes sense. And I hope we are seeing how we have different career prospects as far as our incident management is concerned. So in the next slide, we'll try briefly just go through the 3 steps, the identification, response, and management. So when we do incident identification, what are some of the key things you need to be aware of? First, how do you define an incident in an organization? So different organizations have different threshold that needs to be met for an event to be defined as an incident. Let me go back. So devices will generate events. So an event might be Lawrence has logged into his machine, not necessarily an incident. An event might be Lawrence has logged into his machine from Singapore at 2 p.m., at 1 p.m., not what, 1 a.m. So very early in the morning. But Lawrence is in Kenya. Why is he logging from Singapore? Someone detects that, and that becomes flagged as an incident, because maybe an incident has been defined as any anomalous activity that has a potential to impact information or system confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And if Lawrence logging in from this country at this hour qualifies or meets that threshold, then becomes an incident. So once you have defined what an incident is, next thing is how do you identify above? So for example, going back to the point you have here, a user being created. How do you actually identify a user as being created? Are you waiting for Michael to tell you that, hey, we created a user? Or are you manually every month going through the logs to figure out how many users were created? Or do you have tools on each endpoint that are collecting logs, sending these logs to a SIEM, to a log management solution? And in your SIEM or log management solution, you have rules that are able to automatically detect that a user has been created, and creation of this user is not in accordance with the existing policies or procedure. Or maybe this user was being created through command line, which doesn't happen in an organization, and then that qualifies as an incident. So going back, once you've identified an incident, next thing is how do you identify the incident? For you to be able to identify the incident, typically you need to ensure you have the right tools or technology to help you do that. Then you need to ensure you have the right people to either manage those tools, configure those tools, or monitor those tools. Then lastly, you need processes. So processes standardize and govern how people and how these tools correlate and coexist. So if a user has been created, do we have processes that a SOC analyst can follow to know whether this is actually an incident? Or once they have confirmed this as an incident, do we have processes that can be used to do the actual response to that incident? Are they blocking that user? Are they calling that user to verbally confirm that, hey, is it you? Or are they calling now whoever created that user to confirm that, hey, Michael or Angel, did you actually create this user? Is there an approval form that was signed to confirm that this user actually needs to be created? Did the right people approve that specific form? So for you to identify your instances, you need to have a mixture of 3 to different levels. You need to have the right technology or tools, you need to have the right people, and you need to have the right processes to guide everything. Going to incident response. You have been hacked, you have been compromised, your website is not accessible. What are you doing next? If it's on a Friday, are you saying that, beloved, it's time for you to close your laptops? And saying that, no, I'll handle this next week. Are you praying and beseeching the gods to have favor and mercy on your IT infrastructure and everything and stop that ransomware from spreading? Or are you rolling up your sleeves, referring to the incident response plan and figuring out, okay, so we have been compromised, our website has been defaced. How do we return this to normal operation? Am I doing an email to the company just to notify them that, hey, the SOC team or the CSAT team has identified this issue. We are on top of things. We'll keep you updated. If you're a company that is in the public domain, are you also doing a formal public statement to also talk to your stakeholders, to your shareholders, to your users, to give them that assurance? Or are you logging into that specific system and trying to troubleshoot it, figure out, okay, which website, which page was defaced? Is it as easy as deleting it, or do we now need to do additional log analysis and figure out, is this a vulnerability that is being exploited? And if it's a vulnerability, which vulnerability is this? How do we patch it? How do we fix it? Is this something that the security people can do on their own, or do we need to talk to the system owners for more access, for more privileges in order to actually contain that specific incident? And with that, something I've mentioned here, the incident response plan, we'll try and see, when we say roll up our sleeves and refer to the incident response plan, what is this incident response plan? So the incident response plan, or IR, you'll hear in some sectors it being referred to as an IRP. It's basically a document that details or outline what needs to be done during an incident. So your IRP will essentially tell you that if this is a defacement attack, these are the steps you need to follow for you to either contain that specific incident or for you to detect it. If this is a ransomware, these are the things that you actually need to do. So from an incident response plan, key things to take away is when you talk of incident response, you need to have an incident response plan. And that incident response plan becomes your go-to document whenever you have an incident. In most cases, the incident response plan will also outline to you and basically help you define what an incident is. Going back to job prospects. So if you work in a SOC, if you work in a good SOC, you will always be given that incident response plan. It might be very detailed or it might not be very detailed, but the most important thing is always ask for the incident response plan and have it guide your operations and the things you need to do. As much as the incident response plan is meant to guide you with all of that, the other thing just to be aware of, at times incident response plan are not up to date. So essentially it becomes a living document, and it's a document that you generally keep updating as you respond to more incidences. And as you get more experience, as you get more visibility, as you collaborate more. So with that, we should have covered the detection and the response. Next thing we want to cover is now incident management. When you talk of incident management, I'm reminded of a phrase. I think it's too many cooks spoil the broth, or in this case, too many drummers confuse the dance. Incidents can be stressful, very stressful. Remember, put yourself in the shoes of, I believe, the eCitizen team, banks, and mobile network operators when Kenya was going through the DDoS attack. One, you have eCitizen not being accessible. You have users who are stranded in supermarket, in leisure points because they cannot make payment. and you realize at that time that it's just not only a cyber and IT issue, but that incident is actually having actual physical impact on humans, on users. And depending on how fast or how slow you respond to it, people are becoming annoyed. Some people are losing their jobs. Some people, unfortunately, have seen instances where people actually lose lives. So incidents can be very stressful, and their impact can be internally to the organization. So you might be fined due to regulatory requirement. You might lose a reputational. You might have reputational damage, which will result in a financial damage, financial implication. Externally, depending on your organization, you might be giving services that are used by a huge number of the country. So it's just not an internal thing, but literally the whole country, or a huge part of the country, is looking up to you guys to put your house in order. That can be very stressful, very stressful. So being the fact that it's stressful, automatically it means that that needs to be managed very well. You need to identify, for example, your stakeholders. And these stakeholders can both be technical and non-technical. And these stakeholders, they need to be managed, they need to be updated, and they need to be assured. And here is where it becomes very juicy. You need to manage these and at times be politically on the right side. From a business point of view, be also on the right side. And from a user's point of view, also be on the right side. I'll give you an example. Assume one of the biggest organizations we have right now in Kenya. Let's assume that organization gets ransomed and it has 100% of their data ransomed, which means they completely cannot operate, completely cannot operate. They might have backups. And for them to fully restore these backups, we have seen companies taking months to fully restore their backups. So, big organization in Kenya fully ransomed. During as part of instant response, someone says, no, honesty is the best policy. Let's tell our users that you have been fully ransomed. 100% of our data right now we cannot access. That is going to cause a lot of panic. A lot of panic. And you have seen companies even fold because of this. You lose customers completely, you lose your shareholders completely. If you are trading on a stock exchange, the value of your shares drastically goes down, and now the company cannot even afford its operation. Because someone out there said, honesty is the best policy, let's be very transparent. Then you have a situation, still same company, instead of them being 100% transparent, they might decide and say, yes, you have been ransomed. Let's tell our stakeholders that, hey, you have been ransomed. We are dealing with the situation, and as we know more information, we'll share information. Both statement essentially saying you have been ransomed. But again, both statements are saying these differently. One statement easily causes panic. The other statement gives surety. But again, as this is being done, part of your stakeholders might need to know the whole truth. So for example, if your organization is being managed by a board, you don't want to lie to your board. You want to tell the board that 100% of our data is currently encrypted. We don't have access to it. Depending on if, for example, your organization is a critical national infrastructure, you are mandated to report to certain legal authorities. You cannot lie to those authorities because now you are committing an illegality. So what's the point here? You need to know your stakeholders. both from a technical and a non-technical point of view, and figure out how do you manage them, how do you update them, and how do you assure them. Which brings us to the next big question. Now, this incident management, who does it? Is it the SOC manager? Is it the executive director, the CEO, chief executive officer? Is this the CISO, chief information security officer? Is this the chief risk officer? Is this the chief operations officer? Who does this? Your incident response plan will answer that question for you. However, in the context of this, as part of incident management, one of the things you need to be aware of is what we call the Raki chart, which basically stipulates that as part of your incident management, you need to know who is responsible for what, who is accountable for what, who needs to be consulted for what, and who needs to be informed. The point here being, you need to have clear identification of roles and responsibility before the incident happen. So for example, if we reach a situation whereby we're a leading company, 100% of our data has been ransomed, who is going to lead incident management? So who will be accountable for incident management? Then as part of incident management, we say that there's the identification aspect. Who is responsible for identification? Then we also say that there's response. Who is also responsible for response? And as this is being done, who needs to be consulted? So you might figure out the IT team needs to be consulted, or the networks team needs to be consulted before someone from SOC or detection engineering decides to block all the network. Then you might actually realize that as part of this, there's someone who always needs to be informed. So they're not making any decision, they just want to be in the loop. So for example, at a certain stage, the marketing team needs to be informed. So they are not being consulted, they're just being put in that loop of that mail thread. At a certain point, your legal team needs to be consulted. So part of your incident management, your Raki chart needs to be very clear with all those roles, responsibilities identified and mapped to responsibility, accountability, consultancy, and informational matrix or basis. Let's go back. Who does all of this? So incident response, as you mature from an organizational point of view, it will become cross-departmental, consisting of different players from different departments. So as we already alluded to this, the IT people will have their roles to play, the cybersecurity team will have their roles to play, the legal team might have their own role to play, the marketing team their own role to play, their PR team their own role to play. At the top of this, you'll typically have an incident manager. Now, this incident manager might be your CISO, might not be the CISO. The incident manager might be the SOC manager, might not again be the SOC manager. So who does this? Your incident response plan will clearly define this. Why am I avoiding telling you that you need to have the CISO leading this? Because organizations have different levels of maturity. Take an example. If you look in Kenya, even in Africa and globally, very few organizations actually have a CISO. So saying that your incident management team will be led by a CISO might not work for organizations that do not have a CISO. Maybe for them, they have a SOC manager. But again, not many organizations have SOCs. A lot of organizations will have the IT manager. So in that case, the IT manager might actually be the incident manager. So as the incident response plan is crafted, all of these organizational contexts are typically factored in. The constraints, resource availability, everything is factored in, and then your incident response plan works for the organization based on the people you have, the technology you have, and the processes. I hope that helps us have an idea of one, how we do incident response. From an incident management point of view, an idea on once at least you have an idea of what incident management is, how do you go about building teams? What are the things that you need to factor in and be aware of? Then as we start concluding, how do you now get hired? Remember the 3 steps: identification, response, and management. One, you need to be aware of them. Once you're aware of them, start looking at what are the various roles that are under each step. For example, under identity, SOC analysts will typically fall under identity and response. Detection engineers will fall under identity and response. GRC analyst under response and management. As a GRC analyst, you will be very valuable when an incident is being responded to or an incident is being managed, because you are able to advise and say, this is in line with either internal risk management structures, or whether the response aligns with various regulatory and compliance needs. Second thing, again, not being political, bottom up. Some of the roles in incident response require previous complementary role or experience. For example, you want to be an incident manager. For you to be an incident manager, you need to have a very good idea of how incident response detection and management generally happens, which means you need to have that experience. So it will be nearly impossible for you to be an incident manager straight out of school, or actually straight out of school, because you might not have adequate skills to do some of these things. Again, incident response. You might find that for you to do incident response, you need to have a familiarity with how systems operate. So you need to have some familiarity with system administration, packet analysis, threat hunting, monitoring detection, digital forensics, etc. If you don't have those skills, it becomes very challenging for you to secure some of this role. Under detection. So detection, you might have a SOC Tier 1. And again, if you look at a lot of job description for SOC Tier 1, they will request for some pre-existing skills. So why do we say bottom up? If you start with SOC Tier 1, makes it very easier for you to go to SOC Tier 2. And SOC Tier 2, a lot of these guys will be doing a lot of incident response and a bit of incident management. You become very good with SOC Tier 2, you go to SOC Tier 3, where you are doing a lot of incident response and a bit of incident management. If we bring in even the GRC aspect of things and other specialized role, you will require to have some existing experience for you to secure some of those roles. So if you start building bottom up, so figuring out, so this role will probably require me to have some understanding of networking, system administration, malware analysis, OSINT, cyber threat intelligence. You start building up on those skill sets, so that when those specific roles open, you are actually competitively equipped to secure and land some of those roles. How do you prepare for the role? So I start wrap up. So some of these roles require you to master, especially the technical roles, require you to master tools or have familiarity with certain tools and competencies. So for example, log analysis, system administration. How do you do this? Play with open source tools. Deploy those tools, put them in your labs, utilize trial licenses, and also read reports. we have organizations that typically release reports regarding instances that they have come across. Now, some of these roles are non-technical, which will require you to communicate to various stakeholders, manage conflict and other social skills. How do you prepare for this? Play tabletop exercises to simulate a crisis so that you know that if there's an incident, how do I actually internalize Raki and I'm able to know who am I consulting, who am I informing, who is accountable, and who is responsible. Importantly, again, read reports. Why am I insisting on reading reports? Majority of teams, at least back then when I used to run teams, majority of teams, you won't get an opportunity to adequately prepare for an incident. At times, you might not even detect that incident because either you don't have the right tools or you have the right tools, but those tools have been misconfigured, which will always put you at a disadvantage. However, when you read and consume a ton of reports, you are able to see how some of these threats happen, how they are detected. A good example. So there is an attack called ClickFix. So ClickFix is a phishing attack that essentially tricks users into pasting commands into the machine when they go to capture or recapture pages. And when they paste these commands, they end up being compromised. You might not interact with ClickFix, but how do you prepare for ClickFix? How do you become knowledgeable of what ClickFix is? How is it implemented, or how is it weaponized? Reading reports will help you with that. Reading reports will tell you this is what ClickFix does, this is what the various threat actors weaponize, this is how you're able to detect them. Why is this important? You will find yourself in an interview, having interviewed quite a number of guys from Cybersecurity. So you'll find yourself in front of me and I'll ask you, please give me one of the latest vulnerability that you have identified, or a latest incident that you have identified. Or I might ask you, so there's this big attack vector called ClickFix. Please describe ClickFix and how you'll go about mitigating it. If you're only relying on detecting it, you'll struggle answering that question. But if you're consuming reports, you're able to confidently say that, yes, ClickFix is this kind of a attack. These are the TTPs, these are the IOCs, etc. Again, helping you stand out and show that you're better and equipped for that specific role. So in conclusion, every organization needs and does incident management, which means those jobs exist. However, most of those openings are not very entry level yet, again, due to job sensitivity. Incident response, you come across a lot of things that don't make it to news or are never known. So just due to that job sensitivity, a lot of organizations that will again hire for these roles, which are your telcos, your banks, will be very sensitive on who they hire. Then again, there's a need for practical experience. So people want, if an incident happens, you're equipped to respond to it with minimal supervision, with minimal guidance. So practice, be informed using alternate means to ensure that you break the entry-level barrier and you break the barrier for need for practical experience. Read far and wide to be knowledgeable. Know the best practices, know industry standards and how they're used when we talk about incident response. And with that, I would like to come to an end of this. I hope it's been useful. A bit of disclaimer, I've not gone through the typical incident response. So I've deliberately missed, I haven't covered some of the issues we cover on incident response. One, due to time constraints, and also two, a lot of that content is easily available online. So I was trying to work on giving guys value within the shortest time possible. Thank you so much. I know we are 2 minutes past the hour. I'm open to questions, any clarification as we start wrapping this up. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lawrence. That was amazing and very extensive and relevant. Thank you so much. So I'll just go ahead and open the Q&A very fast. I'll start with the question that is on the Q&A platform. So we have Daniel Kariuki asking, he says incident management involves a process or several people are involved. Now, what do you do to balance speed in incident resolution as quick as possible, considering the process?
Oh, very good question. So, how do I answer that? How do you balance? Facebook, I think at one time had a motto of move fast and break things, which can be very expensive for organizations. So how do you balance that? One, playing CTFs. And I will clarify that. So playing cyber simulation through CTF platforms, actually through CTF platforms. So I previously mentioned I used to create a lot of content, which I still do. I think right now I do a lot of this content with CTF from. So what we are trying to do, and even what FAST is trying to do, is ensure that the CTF we release to the FAST community, especially CTFs on instant response, are very realistic. What do we mean realistic? We'll read a report about a breach that happened and then recreate that report as an actual CTF challenge. Now, as instant responders, how does this help you? The more you play such challenges, the more you improve your skills and the more you improve your capabilities, which means the next time you're responding to an incident, you have the right muscle memories. You know that, okay, if it's a Windows machine, these are my top 5 events that I need to look at, and these are the specific things that I need to look at, because you have done a lot of practicing and your incident response capabilities have drastically improved. So one way to ensure that you have speed, and doing this as regular as possible. So you will find that a lot of organizations right now are doing quarterly cyber simulation training as a way of doing this. When I used to run SOCs, we will do this on weekly basis. And I think at that time, maybe still now, I used to run one of the best SOC in the region because the team was fast, the team was competent. They became fast and competent by, in addition to, again, hiring the right people. Interestingly, a lot of the people we hired were some of the best CTF players in Kenya. So hiring the right people and then taking them through these processes just ensure that if there was an incident, the team was always prepared to respond to that. And again, having an incident response plan where a lot of this is documented, and when someone feels lost, they can just refer to documentation and know what is meant to be done without having to be micromanaged or having to wait for someone to give them the right guidance. I hope that answers the question.
I believe it does. Thank you for that. We'll have a hand from Victor Joseph and then Victor Odwor.
Okay, thank you. My question is about what is the view of cybersecurity startups out there?
Startups.
Yeah, startups.
Yeah. You guys asking me hard questions, which is a good thing. So cybersecurity. There's a book I'm currently reading because I am also in that space called Cyber for Builders, the essential guide to building a cybersecurity startup by a guy called Ross Helwick. So locally, we don't have a lot of cybersecurity startups. Globally, the number of cybersecurity startups keeps increasing and going down. Like all startups, almost 70% of them fail within the first year. The rate of startups has drastically improved with AI. Everyone out there is trying to either sell you a solution to help reduce alert fatigue driven by AI or help secure your environment. Where am I heading with this? As more countries, users go through digital transformation, increase of internet penetration increases, more services are being digitized. It means a lot of data is now going to the digital domain, digital sphere, which means more people are now seeing the impact of insecure system, increase in fraudulent activity, money being lost, all those bad things. And that basically is increasing the need for cybersecurity. Now, existing companies are trying to address these needs, but they're not, those needs are too many, which means essentially we are seeing startups increasing to address those specific needs. But cybersecurity is a very interesting domain in that a lot of it is based on trust. So it's hard to scale cybersecurity startups because the customers out there need to trust you for them to allow you to access their confidential data, for them to allow you to get access to their data. But you're just starting out. A lot of people don't know you, which means a lot of these startups, they have to wait for close to 2 years, 3 years for them to even start having market traction. I'm not even sure if that, I'm sure it helps. So to wrap it up, yes, there's potential for startups, but again, these startups, if you're considering that startup space, you need to be aware of the unique context the cybersecurity domain is in. You are just not selling a service. You are selling a service mostly not to consumers. You are selling a service to businesses. And these businesses will need a way of being able to trust you. They'll need a way for you to be able to show you're the right startup for this. And that's always a challenge, which basically leads to a lot of businesses having big challenges trusting startups and being very hesitant to work with these startups, especially in Africa and I think globally, unless the startup has the right funders or is being backed by a very strong technical team. So basically, yes, it's a startup, but this startup is being managed, or the team of this startup consists of people who have worked with Google, who have worked with Microsoft, who have worked with the big companies. That helps and makes now companies be open to working with a specific startup. I hope that gives some clarity in regards to the startup ecosystem for cybersecurity.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Victor?
Yes,
Victor,
mine is
do
just
what?
to thank Lawrence. Yes. Are you hearing?
Yes.
Yes, mine is just to thank Lawrence for the good presentation. And I was just requesting that he shares the slides, the platform, so that some of us join later could catch up. Right?
I will do that. I'll share the slides with the Hope and the Cybersecurity team.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Emmanuel?
Yes, I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are.
All right, so my question is just based on sort of an interview scenario. There's this challenge I was going through in CTF room, and it was, I think, a ransomware attack, a simulation of sorts. And based on the questions that were there, it got me thinking about how such an incident would play out in real life. So let us say you are in a SOC environment or just a regular company, and then you guys experience a real-time attack. So let us say the same ransomware attack, and then so let's say someone is demanding, or a group of people are demanding cash or something just serious and public. Of course, there's that element of panic that will come up where the staff will start wondering, what do we do, and all that. So I wanted to know, in an interview setting, if you're asked how you would respond to such an incident, is it important to mention how you're going to handle the human aspect of panic, or should you just jump into the technical details of how you would actually handle that issue? Thank you.
Most welcome. Very good question. I hope you are seeing some of the value of the challenges being put on CTF from. In an interview, in most cases, the interviewer might be specific. If they're not specific, if you're ever asked how will you respond to this, your first response will be, if the organization has an incident response plan, I'm going to refer to the incident response plan. If the organization doesn't have an incident response plan, these are the steps I'm going to take. Then now you need to communicate the incident and basically say, this is where you shine, and say, from a response point of view, you are responding to cover the technical aspect of incident response, but also the non-technical aspect. So communicating with the stakeholders, ensuring that you communicate confidence that, yes, we are aware of this, we know what we are doing on top of things to protect company reputation. A lot of people will typically focus on the technical side and leave out the non-technical side. The best people will balance both, because at the end of the day, incident response is about managing people, and you need to manage them from a technical point of view and a non-technical point of view. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence.
Most welcome.
Collins?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for the presentation. Learned so many things. I had two questions, and the first one is about, so you mentioned a lot of interesting things, from having dedicated teams all the way to playbooks, frameworks, and so on. And I feel like a lot of these things make a lot of sense for large organizations, but I was also wondering if you had any advice for much smaller companies that might not necessarily have the financial muscle to have dedicated, not even dedicated incident response teams, but even just dedicated cybersecurity teams. How could they potentially navigate this incident response space? And then my second question is about regulation. I think recently there's been a lot of regulations such as GDPR that actually compel companies to transparently disclose to customers whenever there are breaches and so on. And so I was just wondering what your thoughts are when it comes to how companies can actually balance this trade-off between transparently sharing with their end users what actually happened versus, some of the panic and other things that could potentially go wrong with sharing that information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Collins. Should I say Dr. Collins? For guys, Collins is an amazing, I think, one of the best guys who are balancing the technical things of cyber and academic side of cybersecurity. I'm hoping he'll probably share out his contacts here and some of the works that he has worked on. So, companies without budget. So, whether you have budget or you don't, you'll always respond to incidences. and is the reason why when you are coming up with your incident response plan, you need to factor in your context. Context here being, from a human resource point of view, how many people do you have? So if it's only the network manager and 2 interns, then that forms part of your incident response team, which means you now work with what you have and align the existing industry best practices to your technology and to your people as a short-term goal, with a long-term goal being identifying gaps you might have and how you want to address those gaps. From a budgetary point of view, budget at times can give you the leeway to buy a lot of commercial tools that can work for you or can work against you. If budget is a big issue for you, then you want to focus on leveraging open source tools and figuring out, how do I onboard some of these open source tools into my stack? And then based on the people I have, how do I go about capacitating them and training them to effectively manage these tools? And I know at times it can be a challenge where, yes, I can have the tools, but I don't have the people. I've seen national certs that are manned by 2 people, the cert manager and someone else. So I won't be surprised that we might have organizations that actually have one IT person. One trick I've seen organization use is leveraging interns and attaches on a frequent basis. Of course, it has its pros and cons. Cons meaning that you need to figure out, how am I going to train these people to be able to effectively manage this, and then you're probably going to need to train these people after a number of months, because either the internship or attachment ends, in this case, going back to school or proceeding on with other tasks or other normal career progression. But I've seen a lot of teams leverage working with interns and attaches as a way of building a capacity development, leveraging open source tools, and in certain cases also leveraging what the industry is calling managed security service providers, MSSP, whereby you don't need to set up a whole SOC, a whole SAT team. However, based on the little or much budget you have, you outsource these to other entities for them to do the hiring management for you. All in all of these will have an implication, and a financial implication varies. It can be a direct investment that, hey, I need X amount of money to do this, or it might be indirect through OpEx, whereby, yes, I'll get open source tools, but I'm probably going to spend X number of hours managing these, and this is going to translate into this financial figure at the end of the year, which may be way more expensive compared to if you actually hired more people to do this. So that is typically a whole different case that, as a manager, you need to factor in, crunch those numbers, and see how they align with the business requirement. Again, something I failed to mention here was also, as you set up all of these, aligning them to your business needs. At the end of the day, one of the things we talked about with incident management is you want to minimize damage and return operations to normalcy as far as business is concerned. So again, aligning all of this to business and being able to show value, or how what you're proposing, what you're doing, is actually going to support business. Collins, I hope that has offered a bit of a clarity to your question. On the regulation aspect, regulation can be tricky. There are pros and cons of being transparent. And let me just be clear the point here is not for you to lie or to misrepresent facts. The point here is for you to be strategic with how you share information, who you share this information to, and when you share this information to. When it comes to especially sharing information with the public, we have seen organizations that have gone a step further to actually hire communication experts to actually engage PR firms to help them manage such kind of communication, especially when now the wider public is concerned. Now, as far as regulations are concerned, not in most cases, you can't like regulators. So with regulators, it's typically binary. You have been told to, you have been given specifics of what need to be shared at what time. And this is typically enshrined in either a regulatory requirement or a legally binding requirement. So you cannot really lie as far as that is concerned. Again, we have seen companies lie, and unfortunately, most regulators tend to catch up with such companies, and you tend to pay a lot in regulatory costs. But again, different companies have different risk appetites. We have seen companies who have like, yeah, let's not be transparent with the regulator. We are going to be fined approximately this X amount of money. Yes, we can pay this X amount of money. So there are all those different shifts different factors that you need to be aware of. And again, it also boils down to your own ethical consideration. For example, Twitter, maybe 5 or so years ago, we saw a lot of some of their senior cybersecurity executive blowing the whistle and directly communicating to, I believe this was the United States SEC, I've forgotten what that acronym stands for, whereby they basically say that the company has misrepresented a lot of the facts that it's shared with the regulator, and this has put user safety, data safety at risk. What am I trying to say? There's no straight answer. A lot of how organizations respond to regulatory requirement is based on a very selfish organizational needs to survive, to ensure that their bottom line is not affected, and them trying to exploit a lot of loopholes and gray areas as far as those regulations are concerned. So at times, the communication might not really be in the immediate interest of the end user. It might be in the interest of the organization itself. Collins, I hope that offered a bit of clarity on your two questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the very detailed responses.
Most welcome.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, let's pick Charles and Cynthia as our last questions for the night. So Charles, go ahead.
Thank you. Now, my question is, assume that we are in a large organization where we have a SOC team, then there's also security architecture team. In case there is an intrusion attempt, who's supposed to get the information first between the two, SOC or the other team?
Typically, the SOC team, I'm saying typically because this will also depend on roles and responsibility. What is the SOC team meant to do? In a lot of organizations, the SOC team is responsible for continuous monitoring of alert, attack surface management, etc. Once the SOC has received such an alert, then based on the role of the architecture team, they might reach out to the architecture team and tell the architecture team that, look, we received this alert, but we are missing certain alerts because either logs are not being collected from that specific network or from those specific endpoints, and now it's the responsibility of the architect to actually do the configuration. So you will find that in certain cases, SOC is mainly around detection and response. They don't do any configuration of the endpoints. If there's a need for configuration, a need for rule improvement, then the architectural team is responsible for that. But the two teams tend to work hand in hand, and what they do is complementary to each other.
Okay, thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Cynthia?
Hi, and thank you for the session. So mine is on, I've seen that it's quite difficult to like get communities and groups and like get to see like events that have like the incident response or incident management being talked on. I don't know if there are platforms that you know of that do share such information you can access.
Valid point. So we don't have a lot of blue team platforms, especially locally. So we have a lot of teams a lot of platforms that tend to do a lot on offensive security. So the hacking kind of stuff. But some of these platforms also share a bit on the blue side of things. So what I'll do after this call, most likely tomorrow, I will share with the Cyber Shujaa team some of the platforms I'm in. And you join those platforms, then you just be part of those discussions and see what you can learn. Or you can always plant and start growing a platform. I'm sure you're not the only one who has noticed that gap. A lot of us will happily join and be part of that platform.
All right, thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you. Lawrence, I've seen two questions on the Q&A area. Kindly, may I go ahead with them and ask
Of
them?
course.
Okay. So we have a question from Michael. He's saying, if required by your organization to develop an incident response plan, how and where do you start? Is there a standard to use or templates that one can use?
The last question is easier. Yes, there are templates. I believe there are templates that you can use to set up your incident response plan. Where to start, like all things in cyber, is why do they need an incident response plan? What are the business needs and goals for having an incident response plan? Once you have that, then it will give you an idea on how to proceed. Maybe they want an incident response plan to comply with the regulatory regulations, which means now you need to figure out what are those regulatory obligations and how do you factor them into your incident response plan and incident response policy.
Okay. Then from Tyson, can platforms like TryHackMe help one build enough experience for real-world skills that are applicable at work?
Yes, they can.
Okay. So this we've come to the end of the Q&A session. So just before I bring the session to an end, back to you, Lawrence, just for your last, what do you call, parting shots? Yeah, for your parting shot, and then we can bring the session to an end.
Parting shot. Be curious. Try and figure out how organizations get compromised. Research, and at the end of the day, you should try and challenge yourself. Am I able to actually state that this organization was compromised because of A, B, C, and D? Go a step further, issue recommendation. What could the organization done differently? Could have the organization done differently to prevent that specific attack? Publish, put yourself out there. Do this often enough, well enough, people tend to take notice and people tend to start saying that, hey, that guy should be part of my team. Let me reach out to him or let me reach out to her. That's how you get employed. Thank you. Very happy to be here. And please, reach out in a couple of groups. Please, let's connect, let's brainstorm, share ideas, and work together and be better incident responders. Santeni sana.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been quite the session. Thank you for even taking the time and just answering all our questions and making this very understandable, even to those who are beginning this. So thank you everyone for in making this an interactive session. For those who'd want to recap the session, we always post them on the Cybersecurity page on YouTube. And once Lawrence sends the slides, I'll be able to share them with you on the Cybersecurity groups. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely night. See you next Thursday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yes, Eunice? Okay.